Hi, and welcome back to the Save It for Parts channel, where today we've got another interesting Big Brother surveillance topic. I've been doing a few of these on this channel, not really through any theme or ongoing project. It's just that I keep noticing more and more aspects of the surveillance state, of government and private surveillance. They just keep showing up more and more often in general life. So I figured I'd talk about this a little bit. Now today we're talking about something called automated license plate readers, or ALPRs. These are also known as flock cameras because one of the biggest companies operating these is called Flock. Now, a while back, I actually got this flyer at a convention I went to that talks about the Flock safety cameras and what these are, where they're showing up, and what you can do about it. As some background, a automated license plate reader or Flock camera is something a little bit like a trail camera. It's got a 4G or 5G cell phone network, it's got a solar panel, and they sit on poles around intersections or on light poles and just record every car and person that goes past. And basically they feed all this data back to a central database. An AI system goes through it and basically identifies vehicles based on not only license plates, but color, make and model of the vehicle, bumper stickers, things of that nature. Supposedly they can also identify people by faces, by clothing, by walking patterns, by other things that AI can supposedly identify and nail down to a specific person or vehicle. Now, these have been showing up more and more around the US. Police departments really like them, not only because they add on to municipal security cameras, to police security cameras, traffic cameras, but they're also kind of a sneaky sideway for police to get surveillance information without a warrant, to get it sort of by bypassing any state and local laws against that sort of thing. So if they want to track a person or a vehicle, they don't have to get a pesky warrant anymore. They don't have to have inconvenient probable cause. They can just pull up this Flock database, put in who they're looking for or what they're looking for. The AI system sifts through it and pulls out sort of keywords or key aspects of the surveillance data and shows the cops that information. And they can do this across basically any state or any area that Flock operates. It doesn't have to be in your own state. If you want to know if somebody in another state is doing something that's maybe it's legal over there, but it's not legal in your home state, apparently you can do that with things like Flock. Now, this is one of those topics that becomes a little bit controversial in not only the overall system, but the real-world applications of it, how it's rolled out, how it's used, how it's secured. There are all kinds of aspects of this that raise some interesting and possibly questionable ethical issues. There have actually been a few lawsuits against Flock and against police departments for using this kind of thing because it tends to run afoul of the Fourth Amendment against unreasonable searches. It also very often goes against state and local laws, against non-warranted snooping, against privacy violations, against things of that nature. A number of privacy, constitutional law, and civil liberty organizations have kind of sounded warnings about this sort of thing, and they've also been involved in some of the lawsuits and some of the criticism about Flock and other automated license plate reader systems. Now, I'm not necessarily here to give you all the pros and cons about this or make up your mind about something like the Flock camera system, although I do have some thoughts on it myself. Personally, I have security cameras around my house. I run off-grid solar 4G security cameras at places like Sandland, so I have private systems much like Flock, but I have personal control over those. I can control who sees them, if I want to view it locally or remotely, if I want to share that data locally or remotely. I have control over my own cameras. I don't necessarily want my neighbors to get in there and look at the cameras. I don't necessarily want any police department anywhere in the country to get in and look at my cameras. I don't necessarily want an HOA or a neighborhood watch organization to get in there without me knowing who are they, what are they doing with that data, why do they want that data. But that's kind of the problem with things like Flock, is nobody really knows who is out there accessing the information. Nobody knows why they're using it. There's not a lot of transparency or oversight, and there have already been some abuses of this, of, again, organizations or police departments looking for things that are legal in other states, other jurisdictions, that people are doing in other states and jurisdictions, but maybe the person lives in that police department's jurisdiction, and then they're saying, well, you did a thing that's a crime at home, You did it maybe in another state where it's not a crime, but we're going to charge you with that crime because you went out of state for it. And there are all kinds of issues with this, some obvious ones and some maybe not obvious ones, because states do have kind of a patchwork of laws, everything from abortion to gun rights to drug use to all kinds of stuff that, again, might be legal in one state but not legal in another. And it's not just police who have access to this. The Flock company has been advertising the system to schools, to HOAs, to companies, to neighborhood watch organizations. Basically, anyone who's willing to pay for it can get access to Flock camera data. So your local HOA president could use it to find out things that all their neighbors are doing against obscure HOA bylaws. Neighborhood watch organizations could use it to find out who's driving in and out of a community. Is somebody coming into the community with, maybe they have a car that's a little too old. Maybe your neighbor down the street, they're dating somebody that not all the neighbors agree with. And that could be the kind of thing that Flock is used to track. You also end up getting some downright corrupt activities with these. Like, we've had several police departments and police officers around the US use Flock camera data to stalk people, to basically keep an eye on ex-partners or current partners, or maybe what they hope is future partners. Kind of creepy behavior, and not the kind of thing that you really want a lot of people to have access to. Now, this is not just limited to license plate readers and street corner traffic cameras, because Flock has been partnering with other organizations like Amazon Ring doorbells. Recently, some news came out that if you own an Amazon doorbell, you're a police informant. By default, you are opted in to sharing all of your Amazon Ring data with your local police department, with potentially nationwide police departments, or anyone else that Amazon decides to give this information to, like Flock cameras. And again, maybe you're fine with the police having that information, but do you want your HOA to have that? Do you want your landlord to have that? Do you want whoever else is paying for that data to have that amount of access? You might want to think about that as well. Is a system like this good for certain things, like locating stolen cars, locating missing persons, locating missing children, vulnerable adults? Sure, yes, it is good for that sort of thing, but there needs to be some kind of transparency, oversight, security, and privacy controls. Who's accessing the information? Why are they accessing it? When did they access it? What did they use that information for? Those are all things that need to be recorded and available for some kind of oversight, so that you're not getting creepy stalkers, you're not getting a Big Brother situation, you're not getting abuses of power by police, by HOAs, by other organizations. Those are all problems that can happen when things are not transparent. And a lot of people will claim that just having cameras everywhere will solve crime. If there's a camera on every street corner, if you can see into everyone's windows and see everyone's cars, well, there won't be any crime anymore. And I don't know if I necessarily agree with that. I've been to the UK. There are cameras on every street corner. You're on camera pretty much 24/7, anywhere in England, anywhere in London. And there's still crime. There's still pickpocketing. There is still petty theft. There are still robberies. It still happens. So having a Big Brother state, having a police surveillance state, as the UK is known for, doesn't really stop crime. The crime rate is pretty similar to a lot of the US over there, even though they have Big Brother watching everything all the time. And there have been lots of movies and media about this kind of thing in the past that talk about mass surveillance, that talk about police or corporate overreach and excessive control by corporations, by governments on the general population.
How did you happen to be at Ruby's today?
I was shopping for some lingerie. That's still legal, isn't it?
For your wife?
No, I was picking something up for myself. I do a little cross-dressing on the weekends.
Now, a lot of people would think that movies like RoboCop are a cautionary tale, but apparently a lot of big tech companies see movies like that, and they see 80s movie villains, and they say, that's not a cautionary tale, that's a business opportunity. Unfortunately, ethics and morality are usually way, way down at the bottom of the list for most American companies. The top of the list is going to be number 1, shareholder profits, number 2, shareholder profits, number 3, shareholder profits. You get the idea. Most companies are in it to make money in some way as quickly, as easily as possible. And if they hurt somebody along the way, well, as long as it's not a shareholder being hurt, well, why should they care? So again, there are tons of opportunities for potential abuse with something like this. And again, the technology is kind of happening faster than the oversight, faster than the legal frameworks or the ethical frameworks can keep up with it. And we've seen that with AI. I've mentioned that the Flock camera system uses a lot of AI to sort of detect crimes, to detect maybe even pre-crimes.
But let's not kid ourselves. We are arresting individuals who have broken no law.
But they will. The commission of the crime itself is absolute metaphysics. The precongs see the future, and they're never wrong.
Yeah, again, there are some cautionary tales with things like this, and there are some real-world tales of problems with this. For example, just recently there was a woman, I believe out in Colorado, who was falsely accused by Flock cameras, by the local police department, of committing some crime, and they wouldn't give her any of the evidence. They wouldn't show her the video. They wouldn't show her what they had. They just said, well, Flock says you're a criminal. Flock says you did this. Here's your ticket. Here's your summons to court. And she had to actually go out and prove her own innocence, spend her own time, her own money to fight this and prove that, no, she didn't commit this crime. And Flock just hallucinated it, basically. And that's kind of the problem with a lot of this AI stuff. AI is being pushed by companies like this as the solution to everything. It's perfect. It solves all your problems. It's going to cut your budgets. It's going to eliminate crime. AI is not there yet. AI is nowhere near perfect. There are studies saying it's something like 50 to 60% accurate sometimes, depending on the inputs, maybe even less in some cases. I've personally used things like ChatGPT, and I've found it's not very accurate. It's not very trustworthy. I would not trust it for law enforcement. I would not trust it to detect crimes. Even in my own personal use of cameras and AI technology, going back to my own off-grid trail cameras, they have an AI system that is supposed to detect wildlife because they are hunting cameras. But they're terrible at it. They can't even detect a deer when it walks right up to the camera and gets a really nice selfie right in front of the trail camera. The AI system on there doesn't know it's a deer. So if the systems out there available to the public are that bad, why would anybody trust these? Why would a police department or an HOA or a corporation trust any of the information that's coming out from an AI security system? It's just garbage. Well, I know why they would trust it, because profits. It's cheaper to have an AI do it than pay a security guard to look at the cameras. Now, despite all of the legal, ethical, accuracy questions, despite lawsuits, despite a lot of the pushback from the general public, Flock is actually doubling down and doing more of this kind of thing. They are rolling out audio recording on a lot of their cameras, so they're basically going to record 24/7 audio of whatever's going on in the area. And they also want to do police drones, so they want to have basically police robots show up at the scene of a crime instead of humans. We've never had any movies about that going poorly.
You now have 5 seconds to comply.
Again, it's like the leadership of these tech companies have never watched movies in the 80s, or they watched these movies and they thought that all the villains were correct. I mentioned HOAs earlier, and it's always been my belief that an HOA just exists to oppress people and have kind of cookie-cutter identical suburbs with conformity, and nobody's allowed to have anything more interesting than maybe a different paint color. You have to have identical houses, identical cars, identical children. You can't have any individuality if you live in an HOA. I could never live in one. My house is way too interesting. My hobbies are way too interesting, and I would violate every HOA bylaw. That's why I live in the city, which has more personal freedoms than a lot of suburbs and developments. I can do kind of what I want here, and I like that. Now, I had been hearing about these Flock cameras in the news, and I'd been seeing flyers like this one show up, and I had had people mention in the comments of my videos things about Flock and other mass surveillance and license plate readers, but I had never actually seen one in person, or at least not identified one in person, until a couple days ago. A viewer actually emailed me and asked if I was going to do a video about Flock cameras, and I replied and said, yeah, maybe, I don't know, I don't have any specific plans for it. I've heard about these things, but I don't know, I'm busy, I've got lots of other things going on. And then actually a day later, I saw one in the wild for the first time, or at least actually clued into it for the first time. I was driving out to a suburb of the Twin Cities, and I saw a weird camera with a solar panel on a pole. And then I saw another one, and then I saw another one, and this whole suburb is like infested with these things. And I clued in, and I got to thinking these might be those Flock cameras that people are talking about. And yep, that's what they were. I looked at them, I looked really close. They don't identify themselves in any way, but if you look really close, there's a little logo on the front that's very discreet. But yeah, that's the Flock logo. And these things are kind of all over the place, recording everybody going through every intersection of this suburb so they can kind of track who's going in and out of this suburb. What are they doing? Where are they going? Where do they live? What's their license plate? And who knows what the cops are doing with that information? Who knows what cops around the US are doing with that information? Who knows what the HOA is doing with that information? Who even knows who's getting that information? Because again, there's not a lot of transparency. There's not a lot of information about who is using this, what are they using it for, why are they using it, and should you be concerned, or do you think it's great? Again, people are probably going to have mixed opinions on this. I'm sure I will have some viewers who say, yes, this is great, put these in every part of my town, put these in my living room, put these in my bathroom, I love Flock cameras. And then there will be people who say, no, I don't want the HOA president to know what's in my yard. I don't want the police to know that my car's a little old. I don't want everybody to know everywhere I drive at every time. And again, a lot of the problem, or at least a lot of my concern, is you don't know how it's being used. Is it being used to solve crimes? Is it being used for the police chief to stalk their ex-wife? Is it being used for a private investigator to find out who your girlfriend is or your boyfriend or whatever? Is it being used by an HOA to find out that your flagpole is a little too short and your American flag doesn't meet specifications? Is it being used by your landlord to find out if you have a pet that you're not supposed to have? And again, how accurate is it? Is it identifying real crimes? Is it identifying fake crimes? Is it just hallucinating crimes? It's impossible to tell. So those are just some of the issues that I've come across looking into the Flock cameras, and there are a bunch of other potential issues out there. There are a bunch of articles about this. If you're interested in this, I would encourage you to go out and look it up for yourself, do some research on this system. And there's a website called Deflock Me where you can actually find out where these cameras are in your local neighborhood. And if you know of one that's not on the list, you can add it on there yourself so that your friends and neighbors know where these are and can kind of be aware of when and where they're being surveilled. And if you have concerns about how and why these are being used, I would encourage you to contact your local police department, contact your elected officials, talk to them about some of the issues, find out, do they have a plan for how to prevent abuses, how to use this in an ethical manner, how to use this for legitimate purposes? Are they using it in a way that's consistent with your ethics, with your local area's laws and regulations, or are there some other issues that haven't been addressed yet? Again, I don't always do videos about mass surveillance, although I've done a few because it is kind of increasing in the US. It's been increasing in a lot of countries, and it is something that people should be aware of. Even if they agree with it, if they don't agree with it, you should at least know about it and kind of know what are some of the potential concerns and just kind of be an informed citizen with that sort of thing. If you do want to see my prior videos on surveillance systems like aerial recording or police scanner encryption, things of that nature, check out my prior videos. And if you'd like to see future videos on similar topics, let me know down in the comments. I also do lots of videos on ham radio, satellite things, other topics, so stay tuned for those. And it does always help the channel if you want to like and subscribe. And if you want to support videos like this, I do have a Patreon where you can throw me a couple dollars to help fund future videos of this nature or other projects that I do. Again, I'll throw a bunch of links down in the video description of that sort of thing, as well as to some of the articles and websites that I've mentioned. I hope this has been an interesting video for everyone. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time.